Okay, well, this is a real treat for me to welcome my friend Bill Sumner to talk to us. Bill is the uh, senior engineering manager at Bell Helicopter. Now, Bell is a major employer in our county, and I just thought, we ought to know more about it. Bill is a native of Kingsport, lifelong resident, graduated from Dobbins Bennett in 1978, played football, was a national merit semifinalist. I graduated with honors in mechanical engineering from Tennessee Tech. He's held several engineering management type positions in various organizations. He received his master's in business administration from ETSU in 1990. Has over 30 years of management, business, and manufacturing experience. He's a Six Sigma black belt. All you engineers know that stuff, right? Okay. Uh, he has received multiple innovation awards. He's a graduate of Textron's Growth Leadership Program at The Ohio State University. He holds 6 United States patents in the area of helicopter design. The next part of his bio really stands out to me personally because he's been engaged in the city and he's served as the chairman of the Board of Zoning Appeals. It takes real smarts and a spine of steel to do that, let me tell you. And he's the past board chairman of Networks, the Sullivan County Partnership. He's served as a board member as well as the chairman. He's served on several other boards like Kingsport Salvation Army, the Inventor Center, the Kingsport Chamber Foundation. He's a lifetime member of St. Luke's Methodist Church on Center Street. He has 2 grown children, Sarah and Will, and he's retiring sometime this year from his position. And I saved the best for last. He turned in his Kiwanis membership application just a few minutes ago, and I heartily endorse Bill becoming a Kiwanian. He's a great American. Bill Sumner.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Pat, sit on. I made half that stuff up, Pat. I didn't know you were going to read it. I thought you were just asking for a reference. So when Pat was mayor, I used to, when I'm doing the Board of Zoning Appeals, sometimes, as Don can tell you, you don't get the outcome that you want. So I used to call Pat and say, hey, those guys from Richfield came to see us today, and we denied everything. So next election, I'm going to go down there and campaign for the other guy. I'll get you elected. So I am, see if I can work this thing. I'm pointing the computer right here. Maybe. Okay. You guys know this. This is the Wright brothers. Now, what I'm going to do today, what I'm trying to do is give you talk a little bit about the helicopter business, and I'm going to talk more about what we do locally, but I got a lot of pictures. So I'm just going to talk to the pictures. If I'll take questions at the end, so hopefully we'll keep it going. So this is the Wright brothers, as you know that. A few years later, get behind back. This is Igor Sikorsky in 1939. He was the first to fly a helicopter. This was actually the first mass-produced and full-scale production, not mass-produced, but full-scale production helicopter. This is actually the first Bell helicopter. It should be, Bell helicopter model 30. I'll show you another picture of that in a minute. That was the first Bell to fly, and that was 1942. So you notice a lot of this was wartime related. The helicopters didn't get too much into World War II. They came along more really in Korea, which you'll see. Oh, I've got to show you this one first. This is testing one of the Model 30. They frown on this today. The FAA doesn't really like this kind of thing. But I think they were seeing how many people they could pick up. The guy right in the center, I don't have a point, the guy right in the center, the highest, that's Larry Bell. He actually moved, and he moved, the first plant was up in New York. He moved down to Texas in, I think the 70s, early 70s, something like that. Yeah, 1945. So y'all recognize this from MASH? Yes. This was the first kind of probably the broadest military application of a helicopter, and which really drove, and I'll say it now in case I forget it later, The military applications, that's what drove the civilian uses. Most of Bell's helicopters, and I think most of the Sikorsky's were derived off of military machines. And it drove that much as the civil aviation, the fixed-wing aircraft are kind of driven the same way. A lot of the innovations come from the military, come from defense. Yeah, that's the first production, 1946. Built them up through the 50s. They sold the type certificate for this. Bell did to a company called Scott Helicopters. I think they're still making some of these. I know they're maintaining them. It's $25,000. That's a lot of money back then. So this is an this is an AH-1Z Viper, and this is I skipped the Huey. I'll come back to the Huey because I wanted to show kind of some similarities. This is the current Marine Corps attack helicopter. They say it's one of the it's considered to be one of the most advanced helicopters in the world as far as military and defense. Saw a thing this week. They've actually started firing long-range missiles from them from 120 miles away. I think it was. So they're firing, and they actually said they're connecting those missiles to the whatever the iPads are in the Army, Pat. That's probably after your time. Yeah. Yeah. No offense. But they apparently can digitally put their GPS coordinates in, and they can bring in this long-range missile to where they are, that's the kind of cool things you do with helicopters, and also with drones. Drones are cutting into the business. These are about $100 million fully equipped out the showroom. And those are just thrown in for chuckles and grins. I'll give you more later if you want. At 255 miles an hour. Okay. Now this, and I'm going to go through kind of all the commercial stuff, and then we'll come back and look at the local things. This is a Bell 505. It's the latest one that was introduced. It was introduced about 10 years ago. They're 1.5 million. You can pick one up if you want to write a check. I'll take it. These are used. A lot of people are using them for personal helicopters. We have a lot of. It was introduced to compete with what's a Robinson helicopter, which is what you see a lot at Pigeon Forge and things. Are the thing with the real tall rotor shaft, and we call them unsafe, but that's just our opinion. That's what it's designed to compete with. I'll go ahead and mention it before I forget too. Like if you look at the windows, the landing gear, this has actually got a high landing gear on it, which was one of our Piney Flats designs. In Piney Flats, we make the windows, landing gear, and several other components on this that you probably can't see from there. This is a Bell 407. These are around $4 million. This is probably one of the highest number produced of Bell, over 1,500 to 1,600, I think, have been sold. Very common. It was derived from the 206. And the reason Bell, I mentioned it now, the reason that Bell ended up locally is because in the 70s, coal was going big. A lot of coal miners making a lot of money. Problem is all the coal mines are up in West Virginia, up in Virginia, way up in the mountains. And there were some guys here and there were still, some of them are still remaining here, whether we like it or not. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Some of them remained here. But the guys that started what was Edwards and Associates then, they were mechanics. One of them was a mechanic. I think the other guy was a pilot. And there was actually a third, and they ran him off. He's kind of like the beetle that got left out. But they were driving to these coal mines, and it took half a day to get there and half a day to get back. It's because if they wanted to live around Bristol or Kingsport or Civilization, if anybody's from Virginia or Southwest Virginia, don't get mad at me. But if they wanted to live here, raise their kids, and with different schools, have some restaurants and things, they had to live here. So they started buying helicopters, 206s, which was if Walker Texas Ranger. I don't have a picture of it here. Walker Texas Ranger, that's a 206. You remember that show from way back? That was a 206. They added two blades to it and different engine and grew it into a 407. It's kind of an evolution of design. Very popular with law enforcement, very popular with VIPs. It used to be more popular with VIPs. They're getting more and more other things taken care of now. This is a Bell model 429, about $8 million. because it's got two engines, two Pratt & Whitney engines, jet engine. And by the way, all these are jets. But Bell doesn't build any rotary or any regular internal combustion engines. Everything's a jet turbine. About 500 of these are sold. This was introduced about 20 years, well, probably about 15 years ago was when it came into service. Very nice helicopter. They dress out real nice. They're really nice looking, very swift looking. Again, we make this landing gear. We make the windows. We make lots of other parts on here. And I'll mention now, I'm going to talk more about aeronautical accessories, which is the other part of Edwards. To finish the story about the Edwards, they started in the service business for those helicopters that were here, and then they gradually grew into making parts, designing and making parts, doing customizing. So they grew the business from like 1977 with really 3 employees. They've grown it to what we have over 5. We're right at 500 employees now, and it's hovered around in there from 4 to 500 now for probably the last 20 years or so. Now, this is a 412, and I'm going to show you, in a minute, I'm going to show you that Huey again, because you're going to notice it's very close. It looks a lot like it. That's because a lot of those Huey parts even are still in this design. This aircraft's still built. It was kind of going out of favor a few years ago with some of the other producers were building new models with what we call glass cockpits, which are a digital screen like you have in your cars now versus steam gauges, the dials. We actually did a product where we put a glass cockpit in this and revived it. It was one of the things we did in Piney Flats. So I'll show you this, and I won't look at it close, because when I show you the Huey, you'll see a lot of the area, like in the structures, a lot of the big cast parts and all, they're the same as the Huey from years ago. Just an interesting. They're about $8.5 million. And by the time it comes out $8.5 million, by the time we put all the equipment on it for something like this, which is a search and rescue thing, it's probably closer to 10 or over 10. Now this is a Bell 525. It's been in development now for about the past 12 years. It was supposed to have been certified and put into the market about 10 years ago or 9 years ago. Been a long haul, and I won't go a lot into the FAA, but it's been very difficult to get a new aircraft certified with the FAA. You've seen a lot of things in the news and a lot of things that's going on. The FAA is just as bad as any other government agency. They're slow and cumbersome, and they're hard to adapt to new things. They do a great job, but they're not the commercial side. They're government. So it didn't help. We had a couple pilots get killed in one of these. Crashed it. Actually had a design flaw in it, and they were doing testing. Racked it up down in Texas. Killed 2 great guys, and so that didn't help things, as you can imagine. This aircraft. It holds, and I didn't say that the 412 holds about 13 people maxed out. This holds about 18, 19 people maxed out. It's a big helicopter. Funny story on this, we're getting the first commode. Now, what's the thing that, and I'll show some other things like this, but the thing that gets me sometimes is how many rich people there are in the world. You think there's rich people. We all know rich people, and you think, yeah, there's not that many really rich people. There's a lot of really rich people in the world. The guy that's buying the first one of these, I was setting the presentation, and he's a Texas. He's a University of Texas graduate. He's the #1 donor to the University of Texas, which has the largest endowment of any university in the country, including Harvard and all those others. They got a lot of oil property. So his comment was, "Well, I just want something to go out to the ranch on the weekends." So he said, "Nothing fancy. Just keep it around 30 million and we're fine." That's the kind of things you see. I've met a lot of guys in this. I've got to meet a lot of people in this job. Franklin Graham the other day. Franklin Graham's, they're coming to pick up a new helicopter. Not new, it's a used helicopter. We just did a refurb on. Franklin Graham uses helicopters for Samaritan's Purse when they go in. They were over in North Carolina. Anywhere in the world, they'll go in with helicopters. They needed a bigger helicopter, so they're buying, not this one, they're buying a 412. But you meet a lot of interesting people in this business, because most of the time, if somebody's buying helicopters, because their time is worth a lot of money. And it's all about getting there quicker and getting from point A to point B. without having to have a runway and an airline ticket and that kind of thing. Now, Bell does other things. Actually, about 6 months ago or a year ago, Bell won a big patent against a Chinese drone company because they were knocked off some Bell drone patents that Bell did quite some time ago. So this is actually an unmanned little, and these are going to be cool because one of the things, Pat, you mentioned, they're coming up with these things is they can carry about 70 pounds. So they can fill it full of food and ammo and fly it from back behind the lines into the lines. That's the military application for these kind of things. The commercial applications, if you've ever seen an aerial photograph of downtown Tokyo in the streets, there's not room for big trucks. So the other military commercial applications, from being out far away, out in the suburbs, flying into the cities, that kind of thing. So this is where all these drone things are going. But coming back to the FAA, having an unmanned drone flying around New York City is going to be a challenge. You know, with carrying 70 pounds and going 35 miles. This was a concept vehicle that Bell did. This is at a show. All the old engineers just laugh because there's a lot of stuff on here that's kind of like make believe. But a few years ago, 2, 3, 4 years back, there was a lot about getting in electrical vehicles. This is an electric helicopter. There are some people making. There's actually a Textron company which Bell's part of, who my old boss is the CEO there. They are making electric fixed wings, and they're doing quite well with them. They've got enough. You can get a small aircraft. You can get enough batteries in it to fly around a little while. Same problem with electric cars. If you run out of juice, you got a problem. And that was 2019. Now there's that Huey I've been promising you. If you look at the front, it looks just like that 412 still, and that round nose. The nose is still the same. It's kind of cool to go back. And this was what made helicopters a military piece of equipment, because in Vietnam it kind of invented the air cavalry, and this helicopter allowed that, which Bell won a big contract back in the, I guess, late 60s, I think it was, to build Hueys. They built over 30,000 of them between then and the 70s when they were, but now there was commercial versions came out of this. First it was a Bell 205, then it was a Bell 212, then it was a Bell 412, and those numbers mean they added blades, added engines, that sort of thing. But that's kind of the grandfather of all the Bell helicopters. This is a Bell V-280. This is the latest and greatest Army helicopter. It's about to replace Sikorsky. Sikorsky came in and took over with Blackhawks after the Huey. So Bell was out of the Army aviation business for a long time, but into the Marine aviation. And Marines have kept, in the V-22, which I didn't put a picture of it on here, V-22 you've all seen, this tilt rotor. This is also a tilt rotor. The V-22 flies about 250 knots, 260 knots, something like that. It's a little smaller than this thing. The Marines are now getting them on carriers and using them. It's become the way of the future, really, for tilt rotors. So this one's flying at about 45 degrees, which means it's lifted off. When they pull up the gear and they lower the engines, it can fly. It's a V-280 because the whole goal had a certain range. I don't remember, maybe on here. And then it had a speed of over 280 knots, which is a lot for a helicopter. Well, it's actually well over 300 knots that it will fly with a really good range. Learned a lot of lessons on the V-22. This is taken over. It's going to replace all those Blackhawks out there. And Bell got a 20-year, about a $9 billion contract to go build these. And there's one flying around. They're gearing up. When I was part of Networks, we were trying to get Bell here with the factories. We may still get something in Tennessee, but it's they're building another big plant in Texas, which is, they kind of had to end. Texas throws money at people to get them to come there. They got lots of it. So about configurations, there's really 5 basic configurations, 4 or 5. So law enforcement's a really common one. The 407s, 429s, even the 505s. And it's kind of what we thought was going to happen. Most of the municipalities, like LAPD, those kind of folks, they fly 407. So it's a $4 million, so it's about a $6 or $7 million aircraft maxed out. When we did the 505, there's a lot of smaller, like the Topeka, there's places, smaller, bigger cities, medium-sized cities. So what they're doing is buying that $1.5 million helicopter, putting all the same equipment on it. So they're flying them around. So law enforcement can interfere, even on 412s. Virginia State Police has 3 412s that we do. And they're really good for search and rescue with hoists and things and pull people if they're bigger, the bigger ones. So all the configurations, and somebody will do a 525, which is a $30 million, $25 million. Somebody will do one. It will probably be more like a state or a country type law enforcement. It'll happen, I'm sure. You can see kind of the equipment. These consoles, people in factory call us the devil's consoles because we always change them in engineering because everybody wants something different. Now, when I say customizing, that's what that means. Almost every aircraft is customized. Well, everyone is customized to their final customer, which means they pick the equipment, they pick what goes on it. It's built. Everyone's different. It comes out. Now, if we build a fleet of 15 for the Turkish National Police, which we did, they're all identical. But if we build one for Pat wants one or something, it's going to be his, whatever he wants on it, and it'll be different from everybody else's. You get married with different when y'all could have matching. Oh, and by the way, I was going to mention that if you see these consoles, what those are used for, law enforcement these days can fly around behind you in your car and look at your license plate from the air. They can lock on with those FLIR cameras and see and look at your license plate. We were out in Piney Flats and we were looking with one at the blade of grass on top of Holston Mountain. So that's the kind of, and they can lock it onto you and they're flying around while you're driving down the street. If you pull into somebody's house, they can punch in the address. That's what the guy in the back on those consoles is doing. He's back there typing while the pilot's following you from a mile away and you can't see him. And you pull into somebody's house, they can look up that house number and know who lives there. So they can do all this from the air while they're up there. That's what makes them so effective with as is the traditional nighttime where they're chasing somebody and they see you see the little infrared figures running, and then the guy thinks he's hiding under the woodpile, and all the cops converge because they're telling him he's 20 feet to your right, and they walk over and then they say, we're going to turn the dog loose. And then they turn the dog loose. When the guy doesn't answer, the dog bites him and eats him up, and then they take the video back to the station and watch it during break because it's so funny. That's a true story. If you all know a lot of police officers, you'd understand why they'd enjoy that. EMS you see a lot. We don't build a whole lot of EMS because there's a couple of companies, and if you see these EMS helicopters flying around for the hospital, like for Ballard doesn't own that helicopter. Ballard is leasing that helicopter, the pilot, the mechanics from a company, one of probably 2 or 3 companies, really 2 big ones. And so they build them all the same. They have pilots that go all over the country flying those helicopters, and so it's really a lease operation, which is good because it's very hard to maintain, very expensive, and that sort of thing. So it's better to form the leasing. You can see triple stretchers. This is a 412 litter here, so you can stack 3 people. More of a military thing. They're really flying emergency rooms. In Japan, they are flying emergency. They call them doctor helicopters. They don't pick you up and fly you away. They land and they treat you there. It's a little different in Japan from here. Here, they get you to the hospital as soon as they can. Firefighting, and threw that in. There's just a couple. This is called a Simplex tank. Simplex, the company, makes it. We put them on the bottom of helicopters. They can pick up water. Water's really heavy. You can't pick up a whole lot. Even that's why you see a lot of the flying tankers, fixed wings, because they can haul a lot more water than a helicopter can. It's hard to. You're beating the air into submission with a helicopter, so it's hard to get a lot of weight on it. And in VIP, some of these things are incredible. We've put a throne in one before. The King of Thailand, I think it was, had a helicopter built. We put a throne in it. The interesting thing was nobody else can sit in that throne ever. So while that throne was in the helicopter, there was an armed guard standing there guarding that throne, so nobody got in 24 hours a day. Very important to them. Not sure why. Very important to them. We've put gold statues in them. We've put everything, but we have not put a bathroom in one yet. Nobody has a bathroom in a helicopter yet. There are some people that have fooled around with it a little bit, but no bathrooms yet. You just land. I have an interesting picture from the Valley of the Monuments out in Utah, because a couple of pilots were flying one of our helicopters out to Las Vegas for a show, and I said, "Man, that's a really great picture. What inspired you guys to take this picture?" And they said, "We had to go pee." So they stopped, and one of them kept the rotors running, and the other one got out, and then they took turns, and then they took a picture because it's such a nice picture. Everything. This seat reclines. This is one of the kits we did. This seat reclines. It swivels. It rocks. It does. That's a really nice, very comfortable leather seat. And you can take one of those 412s, and that's what that is. There's 4 of those seats in there, and you can have a nice business meeting while you're flying from point A to point B, which is what happens a lot. Something like realtors will put big video screens. It's not that big, but we'll put big. So when you're flying over a site, which right now it's just trees, they can show you what it's going to look like once it's graded and developed, and you can fly over it and look, and you can do a sales presentation while you're flying over, which we've sold some of those. All right, so this is Bell Piney Flats. Edwards Associates name came off. Bell bought Edwards in '99. The name actually changed on the building in 2011. And so you can see there's about 6 buildings. We've been acquiring real estate out there for quite a while. We started off with really the first purely, it was building 450 there. That was the first purely helicopter, designed to build helicopters in. Up until then, they was down the street. So when they come down from Mirabel, they're actually built in Mirabel, Canada. The reason for that is our Canadian friends, and they are friends, but they're competitive friends, as we saw last night. Hockey, if y'all didn't see it. I watched it for a little while. I can't see the puck, so I don't watch it much. They're built in Mirabel, Canada, because in the 70s, Canada wrote a lot of big checks to Bell to get them to come up there and start, and they've been writing checks ever since. And they do what's called I forget what term is, give back or payback. They put a lot of money into Bell for research and development, things like that, and then Bell has to put a lot of jobs in Canada. And that's the way economic development usually works, if you're familiar with it. But there's a big plant there. They build them. We call them green aircraft. You see the green on them, that's primer. They're not painted. I'll show you why in a minute. That's a 407 on the left. Actually, that's a 206 on the left. This is an old picture. Yeah, it's a 206 on the left. I do have a picture in here. You can see it looks like a 407, and that's a 412. We get them lined up like that sometimes. And I always sometimes I'll go out there and we had a sale canceled with the Philippines. We had 13 412s sitting in the hangar for about 4 years. It was canceled because the government of Canada, although they like to hand out money, they were very they were afraid that the Philippine government was going to use them against rebels, which we had no problem with that. I mean, it's truly rebels or terrorists, if that's what they are. They didn't want us to sell them, so we ended up. So what reason I've mentioned that's because when you walk out there and the hangar's full of helicopters, you can go 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million. It's all in a pretty small space. A lot of inventory costs, but it works out. You can see we get them stacked up. We don't build them down a production line. When we're doing them here, when they come in, first thing we do, if you notice these, they fly in from Canada, but then we tear them all apart and put all this stuff back in them. That's why a lot of them don't have seats, don't have radios, they're not painted, because we customize them and complete them. That's what that's called. A&P mechanics, 2 years. It's usually 2 years of training. They have to get a license, an FAA license. You can test in Morristown. For anybody that's got kids that are growing up, grandkids growing up, you can go out to Northeast State now. Give Jeff a plug. We help them set up a A&P mechanic training facility there, training school that they've done as part of an associate's degree. So you can use Tennessee Promise and go get your helicopter mechanic license for free, and then go work at Bell or wherever, Lear, Jet, and now you've got your mechanic license. It's like any other licensure thing. You may not know that much, but now you've got the piece of paper that says you can go do it. Avionics is everything these days. Just like you see everything on cars, avionics is the same thing, helicopter. The parallels between the car business and the helicopter business are close sometimes. Structural, that's just drilling holes, mounting stuff. Interiors, we actually recover seats. We'll put your logo in them, do all sorts of cool things. The guy from Texas, which I was talking about, I thought we need to go to call the University of Texas. He'll pay dearly to get those Longhorns in the seats of his helicopter because he wants that first Texas-built helicopter. Paint, show you a little bit more about the paint department. It's just kind of a weird picture, which it's like painting a car. Most of our good painters, guy that ran the shop for 30-some years, he started off car painting. It's very similar. Oops. Paint shop, we just pulled some pictures of some decent looking, beautiful paint jobs. I mean, some of them are incredible. They're just really good. And you see all the stripes and things. Stripes are done in, they mask it off, paint it, mask it off, paint it, just like you do with a race car. Maintenance I bring up because that's actually our helicopter there. We have a maintenance shop. That's one of our main businesses because it's just like having a car. You got to change oil, you got to do inspections, you got to do all that routinely. It's usually done by hours, flight hours. So we got a lot of maintenance from all over the Southeast. Ross Perot Jr., who I met in COVID, he was coming to pick up a new helicopter. He flies. Ross Perot Jr. flew around the world in a Bell 407. He's got Bell on his boots, Bell 407 on his boots. He showed up during COVID, and we're all standing out there. He wanted to meet some people, so we're standing like in the line of attention because he was going to review us. It was really kind of odd, so we're standing there kind of meek because we'd never met him before. He comes up and he stops in front of us. We're all wearing our masks. And he says, "In Texas, we don't wear masks." So we all got our mask off. Great guy. I often wonder if he ever shows up in politics, he'll do something because he was very much. They say he's a very impressive man to me. Non-destructive testing is something we just throw because we have laboratories. We can do everything it takes to maintain an aircraft. And the non-destructive testing is used to see if something's got a crack in it, which is real nice to know if you're going to put it back in a helicopter. Overhauls, we do overhauls. Bell quality, yeah. This is our delivery center. Like I said, it's a lot like cars. We have this really nice hangar that we hang the Bell flag in, and we put little carpets out, and we get the helicopter in there. We polish it all up, and you've got your books, except the helicopter books is like filling that table. And whoever's going to come in, if it's somebody from a state out of this country, which is about half of our business is out of the U.S., we may have a champagne celebration because it's a big deal for their country to buy a helicopter. But we deliver it. Everybody signs, shakes hands. They sign the paperwork, and then we all wave. Sometimes we wave, and sometimes we wave. It's just, the Mexican guy we were waving at real hard. We were so glad to see him leave because he was the worst customer ever. But we didn't tell him that. Tennessee State Police did this because this was Helene evacuation. They got involved. The Tennessee owns. Tennessee has had a history of having Bell helicopters. They started off with some old military aircraft, as most municipalities do. They've been buying 429s since Tennessee's gotten a little better. They're newer, safer, faster, better equipped. I think they have 2 or 3 429s now. And they're all painted just like a highway patrol car. And by the way, when they do these, they always paint them like Michigan. They look just like the highway patrol cars.
Is that why they didn't come and rescue the people in Irwin, that Virginia helicopters rescued the people in Irwin? They didn't have the helicopters.
Virginia's a lot closer. Virginia, you'll see a lot of med flights from Virginia coming into Tennessee. They're closer. They're out of Abingdon. That's why. And there was a lot of other private people out doing that too. The other thing was too that it's not easy rescuing people. They were starting to get in each other's way. So there was a lot of organization that happened later. This Luke Bryan threw that in there because he bought a 429, which is it was used. He bought a used one. It wasn't a new one. He got a good deal on it. The funny thing about that was his manager was going around telling everybody, don't y'all spread around about Luke. We don't want to let people think he's like uppity and buying this helicopter logo. Well, then he gets out in front of the whole crowd of employees because he sang about 3 songs and did a little. He said, "I got to tell you why I bought this aircraft." He said, what's his name? Blake Shelton. He said, Blake Shelton gave me a duck dog. He said, that duck, well, we like to go hunting. It's way out in the middle of nowhere. I bought this helicopter so me and that dog can go hunting. We're all looking at the manager going, he's a really nice guy. Now, aeronautical accessories, there's really 3 or 4 businesses out there that are helicopter related, but aeronautical accessories, I always say the helicopters, that's where the pretty stuff is. This is the parts business. And it's just like the car business too. The money's made in the parts. The money's not made in the service. You go down here, Rick Hill, he'll tell you the same thing. Rick Hill doesn't care if you buy a car from him. He just wants you to bring it there and get worked on because that's where all the money is. Same thing with helicopters. Aeronautical accessories was when the guys that started the business back in the 70s started buying parts. They were paying for one of these plastic windows, which I'll show you right there. They were paying, $1,500 for a piece of plastic. You go down Home Depot and say, hey, that's $50 worth of plastic because it's made out of acrylic. Well, a lot of paperwork behind it. So they got into that business pretty quick. And so now Aeronautical Accessories has, we have over about 500 STCs, which is what allows you to sell aircraft parts. I think there's 20,000 part numbers and over almost 3,000 distinct products that we sell. Everything from windows to autopilots to landing gear to, and that's across the street. I didn't point it, that's across the street from where all the helicopters are built. So, and I'll show you something else. So, windows and plastics, landing gear, make, that's just a machine shop. I'm going to skip the landing gear slide. Landing gear, which we make landing gear out of aluminum tubing from Germany because it's the best in the world, and it's what we can make landing gear out of, which are springs. And you're not, engineering school tells you don't make springs out of aluminum. That's what we're doing. We're making springs out of aluminum, which is a challenge. It's a very different kind of manufacturing. We just got our notice of our 25% tariff increase, but that's fine. Machine shop. This is just kind of a cool picture. It's a fabricator. We make skid shoes. We weld them. We weld bottoms of skid shoes because it's hard. They can scrub on concrete. We also make carbide skid shoes. There's quality again. And I'm going to flip through these. Now, this kidding, I was going to get to this slide because those blue and white aeronautical boxes, those are expensive boxes if you go there and buy boxes, but we've kept them blue and white for years because it's very distinctive. It's a brand that we're pretty well known in the helicopter world. We build all these things in the factory, in this manufacturing facility, which is what that is, and that's where my background was before I got to Bell and learned all the other parts. And then we put them in these boxes, and a lot of them go across the street where we put them on the aircraft, and then a lot of them may go to India or Singapore. We have distribution facilities in Singapore and in Europe, all over the world, South America, Africa, and we have service facilities. Bell has service facilities all over the world. Logistics. These are some people, not necessarily such pretty people, but people. This one just says it's just sales and marketing. It's just the point is that we have full. We have been an independent company for many years. We're part of Bell, but we still operate very much independent. We have our own marketing, engineering, have all those basic departments. Engineering, if you know Jessica Harmon, that's her husband there, the big guy with the beard. I hired him about 10 years ago. Geeky looking engineers, I always call them. So what I included on here was a couple of my favorite projects. Promise I'm getting close to the end. A couple of my favorite projects. This one, I got a call one day. If you notice, the blades on this helicopter fold backwards. Most helicopters, you make them with the pins you can pull out, so you can fold those blades, so you can put two of them side by side. A lot of times, to get them through, like hangar doors, you got to rotate them to get them through because of big doors and things. So we always make them fold like two forward, two aft. I got this call one. This is a Russian oligarch. Russian oligarchs were made by Russian generals who were over a plant making, say, munitions, and with the fall of the wall and everything, they said, "This is now my plant, and I've got a couple hundred troops here to make you understand that." That's how they developed Russian oligarchs. So this is one of them. I'm not sure what his business was, but I got this call, and he said, "We really need you to make a blade fold kit that those 4 blades can go to the back." And I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Well, our boss's helicopter won't fit into the hangar on his yacht." That's what that is. That's the hangar on his yacht. It's like, what I said was, this is the kind of problem I'd like to have. My helicopter doesn't fit into my yacht. What kind of a problem is that? So literally I just took one picture. I've got a series of pictures because I had to see this. So it comes and lands, and then he lands it, and then they push a button, it goes down the deck, and then the doors fold over. It's really cool. That was one of my funniest favorites. There's been a couple others. This one, I got you a surprise. So, hope I can see this. Should. Yeah. That's a bird test. That's a 2.2 pound chicken. I didn't get it to work there. I think I can do it again. So watch closely because you've all heard of the bird. Most people have heard about the bird test. Well, there's an ASTM, American Society of Testing Materials test that you take a 2.200 pound chicken, recently deceased, like right before you shoot it. Because they're all out there walking around, and the ones with the little blue dot on their heads, they're the next victim, So the guy goes out and grabs one of those, weighs it, clips the toenail if it's off a little bit, puts it in a bucket of nitrogen, kills it, and they put it in this little can, and you put it in this big air cannon, and then you shoot it, and this is hopefully it passes. And this one passed. This is one of my patents for this windshield because it's the only one on a 407, which is a Part 27 aircraft. It's the Part 29 aircraft, the big ones have to have impact resistance windshields. The little ones don't. So we did this. We sold a lot of these. It's our best selling product these days. Works better if it's out of. I'll show it again. Just watch close because I'm not going to be able to show it more than once. See? And what's cool about it is the way that windshield is made out of polycarbonate. Wonderful material. It's made out of polycarbonate. You see the chicken's feet come out if I just let them out. And the PETA people in here, they don't like that much. A quick funny story on that. So we're at this range. We've been shooting these chickens all day. There's chicken parts everywhere. Come back the next morning. This is in San Antonio in the summertime. Come back the next morning, that place picked clean. And I told the guys running the facility, I said, man, you guys got an awesome cleanup crew. This looks like we're never here. And he said, we don't have a cleanup crew. Well, what does all this? He said, raccoons, coyotes, possums, in the order of predator. So about 5 o'clock in the evening, you look up on the bank of both things, there's a bunch of raccoons sitting up there going. True story. They're sitting up there waiting for you. And they picked that place clean. Fresh chicken. This is one of my other favorite ones. So we did it in 2011. We did an ARM 407. Sales were slow. We take commercial helicopters, turn them into paramilitary helicopters, send them all over the world. That's what this is. It's a Bell 407. It's got rockets and machine guns on it. I've got some cool videos out in the Yuma testing grounds. We sold a lot of them. We're doing another version now, and it's because a lot of people buy these. This is not this is for Colombia. Somebody that's patrolling their borders. They're fighting guys in Toyota trucks, not guys in other helicopters or jets. We call it paramilitary. And so they work pretty well. The reason this was the Chairman Awards winner of 2011. That's a picture of a bunch of old guys with Textron's chairman. Questions?